PCS, TDY, commissary, base, change of command. These are all words that were used nearly every day in my household, but any average person has no clue what they mean. For those who haven't grown up with a parent who serves in the military, life might be hard to imagine, but for the nearly 1.8 billion children of active duty, National Guard, and Reserve parents, military life is what we consider normal. Yes, I'll admit it, I'm an Army brat. My dad served 21 years in the armed forces before retiring, so the usual way of life is pretty much the norm for me. My dad specializes in joint forces operations, which means that even though he's now retired, he's always busy planning war strategies and training military personnel. At times he can do that from home, but other times he has to travel or we have to move. Statistics from an article by the National Military Family Association say that an average military child moves 6 to 9 times between kindergarten and high school graduation. And having lived in a total of 9 houses, I'm no exception to that rule. When speaking about the quote military lifestyle, the article notes that it is important to remember that each service, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, is unique. Some services deploy more than others, and some deploy longer than others. Because my dad served in the Army, after 9/11, deployments became much more widespread and they lasted much longer than before. Even though separation had become a way of life for my family, we were in no way prepared for the devastating repercussions of the September attacks, or at least I wasn't. As I mentioned, my dad specializes in special forces operations, which means that after 9/11, he was one of the main guys creating plans to counterattack Iraq. Unfortunately, this led to several long trips and one particularly devastating 7-month term. Before my dad left for Iraq that time around, the Army gave him an ultimatum: move to Virginia in the next 2 weeks or go to Iraq for 6 months, then move when you get back. Knowing that it wasn't a good time to leave, Dad went to Iraq and the rest of the family stayed in Prattville to pack up. The 7-month term could not have happened during a more pivotal point in my development, my transition from child to teenager. Even though my dad missing significant events was somewhat normal, when he missed my 13th birthday, I was outraged. What made it even worse was the fact that I had finally allowed myself to become attached to a location. I began to create deep friendships, I became invested in my youth group, and I loved being part of the 4-H horse club there. When my parents told me that we were moving again, I felt as if my entire world had been ripped out of my hands. I was furious. I wouldn't talk to my parents for days. I was violent. I refused to listen to my mom. I hated them for making me move and for dragging me into this military lifestyle. I remember multiple nights while my dad was gone, just sitting in bed and sobbing into my pillow because I was simply so angry at him, but at the same time terrified for his safety. I couldn't hold back thoughts like, how could he do this to me? I'm turning into a teenager and he isn't here to help me figure out life as I change. Why would he take away the only friends I've ever had? No one understands what I'm going through. I hate the military. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I just want to be a normal family for once. And then there was the scarier questions. It only got worse when I accidentally read an email that my eyes weren't supposed to see. My dad's trailer had been bombed the night before my 13th birthday, but luckily he randomly decided to go to a Bible study that was being hosted that night, and consequently his life was saved. Reading this email lodged even more worry into my tiny little head. I began to think thoughts, not only lying in bed, but throughout the day. Things like, why does the military rip families apart? What if my dad doesn't come home? What if he's a completely different person when he returns home? And similar questions along those lines. When Dad did finally return home in July 2007, we said our last goodbyes and made the hardest and final move to house number 9 in Suffolk, Virginia. I hated living here at first, but looking back, it ended up being the best thing ever. Over time, I've learned that military life may not be easy, but if you let it, it can teach you a thing or two. I'd like to think that being immersed in military culture has taught me to adapt to new environments more quickly than my peers and has helped me to make the best of new situations. It's also aided me in becoming a culturally enriched person and has assisted me in experiencing the world. Yes, I am one of those military kids who fits the article statistics. I have said goodbye to more significant people at the age of 18 than the average person will in their lifetime. However, if I never would have moved back to Suffolk, then I never would have met some of the friends that I cherish. I never would have tried a new sport. I also never would have heard about JMU, which means that I would be missing out on one of the greatest experiences of my life.